I'm Ragable.
And I'm Couchguy.
You're watching the Two Smart Guys show, where every week we bring you the latest and greatest in technology that catches our fancy, and we want to change it, make it better. And we show you how.
Yes. And we want more of it all the time. More.
Oh, we're just bitter and we bitch about new stuff.
That would be the case more often than not.
I'm
Becoming
I don't like change!
I'm the optimist, Couch Guy's the pessimist, and Ragable's the...
Sometimes here.
Yeah.
Can I be the drunk one?
Sure.
Yay!
So
I'm some crazy guy, just spouting off random stuff.
that would be Andrew.
Yeah, that would definitely be Andrew.
Yes. Oh crap! What is it? Wednesday. Okay, never mind. Sorry. Go on.
Is it his birthday?
No. Other things.
Oh.
I was supposed to be somewhere.
Okay, so what's on the agenda
NAB.
tonight?
So every year about this time-ish, there's this huge...
Tax time. Just think of it as tax time.
Tax time,
That's
yeah.
how I remember. Whenever tax time's coming, the special time of year is here.
There's this huge convention down in Las Vegas for all the people that do like video broadcasting, TV,
Radio.
radio.
And it's getting into web stuff and film production, video games.
Video games?
Absolutely. How do you think that? Okay, let me explain. The CGI technology
Yeah.
they use for that, and the motion capture technology, all come from broadcast and film.
Yeah. Also,
Okay.
wireless stuff for like we were just talking about earlier, the ubiquity stuff. There's a lot to do with like towers,
The
and
mobile
transmission and
broadcast.
FCC and yeah.
So
It's kind of interesting how far they go.
So what about this year's show is piquing your guys' interest? You guys are the NAB experts. I just sit in the sidelines really for this.
If we showed shows from CES before, and that's like the consumer electronics, the stuff you can actually buy and afford. Most of the stuff at NAB is the stuff that your work could afford, but you will never be able to afford.
Yes.
Well, that's not true anymore. I would say that was true 5 years ago, and it's going down as time goes on.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still
really, this is like high-end stuff.
right. So this year, a couple of things that we're looking forward to checking out, at least me and Couch Guy, because we're kind of Sony fanatics, are the new 4K camera from Sony.
I'm kind of interested. I would say I'm less excited about that camera, and I'm more interested in seeing if there's a sleeper camera coming out.
What the hell do you mean by sleeper camera?
Well, let's put it this way. I haven't heard a heartbeat out of Panasonic in about a year and a half.
Yeah, that's
Have you heard anything out of Panasonic since they put out the AF100?
no.
And how long ago that came out? 2 years ago.
Yes.
They delivered on that camera a year and a half ago, and the final delivery, and then suddenly the FS100 started shipping, and the Arri Alexa came out, and not another peep came out of them.
Interesting.
I think about this stuff. So I wonder whether or not Panasonic has a camera coming up. Honestly, I doubt it. Panasonic is rather lazy when it comes to cameras. They don't like to, how you say politely, put any effort into it, it seems. Like, seriously, when everybody else was like competing to come up with a super 35mm sensor into their cameras, Panasonic seriously looked us in the face and said, "Oh, don't worry, a 4/3 inch sensor is big enough."
Yeah, it's good enough. Yeah.
And we went, "Excuse me? That's less than half the size of what everybody else is putting out." And that's the largest sensor they put into a camera that I know of.
It's still significantly larger than the previous.
It is significantly larger, and it's not a bad camera. I'm in no way dissing the camera. Panasonics make fantastic images. I just don't see any effort coming out of them.
I got a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
What's the fucking big deal about 4K?
4K is bigger. It's the more resolution you have
8 megapixels. So if
versus
Yeah.
23
is
megapixels.
2, it's 8.
But that my argument here is, or my concern here is, you shoot in 4K, that's great, but then it's just going to get down converted to 1080p.
You're right, absolutely. But here, let me.
Eh.
I can explain this very, very simply. Up until present, 35 millimeter film is only restricted resolution by the scanning ability of the laser or whatever scanners on it. Because due to the way that silver and all the emulsion, things like that, the grain isn't structured in the same way, so the resolution really isn't, fully encapsulated by a 4K or 2K scanner. Like, you could get more out of it if you scanned it again. I'm not really sure if they're going to hit a cap on that, but what happens with 4K, and this is why this is not a consumer thing. 4K is 100% a broadcast film side toy. Because at this point,
toy was a key word, right?
No. The reason why is because right now, until it's adopted, it is 100% toy. And the reason why I say toy is because, no, you will not see an end user 4K image outside of IMAX. Because the point of it is that, okay, yes, I can acquire at 4K. So what happens at 4K is I acquire a large image, and if I want to crop that image in, I don't lose resolution. So doing green screen work, doing other work like that, or even just wanting to readjust. Now, the second thing is...
But that your argument about Panasonic being lazy is the same thing they're saying, we're not going to worry about framing it. We can just crop it later because we spend...
No, that's not what I'm trying to say. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying reframing for... occasionally you have composition issues, where you either need to reframe for composition.
Or if it's an event videography where you have no choice in the matter, where people dart.
There's things like that.
Or another.
More often than not, you're reframing. I would say the most proper version of reframing has to do with effects work, because you could shoot it wider, which you need to get the entire person.
Right.
But maybe you wanted to reframe to a closer up of something on a green screen. That really diminishes your abilities.
Plus,
when you're working
with your keying, that extra edge detail when you downsample will look a lot better.
So the second reason is 4K technology allows you, if you were to just shoot beauty shots in 4K, there's a couple of people who've been shooting beauty shots in 4K and above, and they look fantastic. They look amazing. There are 4K displays on the way.
There are.
At some point, you will have a
CES.
4K display in your house. Mm-hmm. We will be shooting at that point in 16K. Okay. But the 4K displays that we're shooting now will allow you to buy a hyper Blu-ray later on in full 4K.
I think.
Oh my God. Okay. Hold up.
You can watch.
Wait. Apple's been touting this whole Retina display as the eye can't. It's what the eye's need of resolution is, or something along the lines of that.
Yeah.
And anything beyond that is just kind of, unnecessary.
It's marketing speak.
If you believe that, I've got a marketing bridge for you.
But anyway,
so
the iPad, it's higher than 2K. It's higher than 1080. So for a 4K display, that would actually be a benefit for 4K video on the new iPad.
What my point here is, at what point in time does the increase in resolution stop being noticeable?
It depends on how big your display is.
Well, not to mention that it depends on the quality of work you're going to work on. Because in reality, if you were to, even the difference between working in 60 frame, 30 frame, and 24 frame has a technical resolution difference because of the way your eye perceives motion and resolution. A 60 frame, if you shoot in 60 frame in 720p, it will appear sharper than something in 24 frame at 60 frame. It's, in the same resolution of, frame dense. So you have all kinds of images, all kinds of things affect the way you feel about resolution. So it's not just the size of the frame. But the more little pixels I have to work with, the higher the quality I can play at, which is the whole point. The bigger the canvas, the better I can be, the better it looks.
Things are always getting better. Look at Couchguy's resolution and frame rate. It's horrendous right now, but 10 years ago, that would have been top-notch web video,
got that
man.
Right. You got that right.
So
we have to be pushing the market. How else would we sell high-end computers if we didn't have something that
There's always
that
got to be
high-end?
something better. That's just the way it is.
You're just talking. This is just coming from a guy who doesn't even have, resolution. A display that outputs 1080p yet. I'm still not into I'm still not with the HD.
What are you looking at? What is the resolution of your monitor?
Actually, mine might support HD. I might have accidentally purchased that. Hey, it is HD.
So the point
But
of
that's for computing. I don't have what you would consider.
here's the issue. I'll tell you up front what the biggest issue is. The larger right now, 2K is too small to be projecting on a large screen in a movie theater. I've seen it. It looks
2K?
fine.
Too
2K
small
is too
for
small.
a
That's
movie theater?
2,048 pixels across.
I can see the jaggies, man. I can see the pixels.
You see jaggies and pixels in
We
anything.
need to be broadcasting, or not broadcasting, but projecting in the neighborhood of 8 to 16K in movie theaters to actually have the same resolution feel as what we're seeing on a monitor, on your iPad.
Resolution.
I would agree with that.
Feel. What is that? Is that a real technical term? Resolution feel.
Well, resolution, the optical resolution, so that you could blow something up. So you're a photographer. You understand how pixels are compared
Yeah.
to size.
Yeah.
You could not shoot a 1 megapixel camera, which we're talking about something that
And blow
is
it
what
up to a poster.
and blow it up to
Yeah,
18 by
I
24.
understand that. I understand that.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
just so
Think about the
current-
same thing. We're dealing with the same thing. If I want to shoot into a movie theater scene, I should be shooting, and we're not, but I should be shooting at 8 to 16K.
So
Actually set a resolution for that. Now, home display is completely different. Web display is completely different.
So,
but you
if that's what
always
you
shoot
need
at
to
the
shoot in-
maximum.
if that's what you need to shoot in, what the hell has the movie industry been doing this entire time then?
There hasn't been the technology out there.
Well, film.
So
Film is
So-
the only medium in which you had the resolution to do so. And guess what? Kodak went broke.
what about all these digital, projectors and all this other digital movement?
The highest digital projector that I know of
They stitch them.
is a 4K projector that's actually like pretty relatively, I'd say, easy to get your hands on kind of thing. There are higher end projectors.
They've shown
They're not
8K.
Yeah, I've seen 8K, but
Yeah.
I can't say that they're ever like no one's
They're
got
not
an
real.
8K.
They're proof of concept,
But
technical
what
achievement.
I want to
things.
get into is the ability to be at IMAX resolution, which is what is that, 78 millimeters, something like that.
Yeah.
It's a huge.
IMAX has been around since the 70s, so I mean, you're
But-
talking about resolution not being good enough, or I mean, being already good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been this technology for a higher resolution since the 70s.
It just we
But
went
it's in
from
the
an
film
analog
format, isn't
medium.
it?
Yeah.
We went to an analog medium to a digital medium, and the digital medium does not yet
So-
achieve
so-
the analog medium.
The current digital movie industry doesn't have the same resolution feel as the old analog movie industry.
Correct.
So it's been this whole it's the same kind of era when everybody stopped, using cassette tapes and went into CDs, but the CD bitrate was crap.
Do you know why
What?
it
No.
took so long? No. Do you know why it took so long for George Lucas to release the first 3 on Blu-ray?
Because they looked like ass.
Because if you actually saw them on a 1080, you actually saw them in the resolution they were technically shot at, you would throw up. They look horrid. There was a lot of work done to those to try and make them look okay for Blu-ray. My
Huh.
personal opinion. It's nasty stuff. Because when we used to do this all the time, there used to be a joke that I'm only shooting SD, I can cheat it. Because the resolution of our cameras and even our monitoring systems for like beta were better than you could see at home.
Correct.
So we could see things that were going to be there. We're like, you're never going to see it when you get it home because it's just, you can't see it. Once we get through broadcast and everything else, you're not going to see it. Now, we see everything. So we need to be, we're upping our standards for things like that. It's just a matter of, as soon as we get to a point of technology, you're going to have the next phase, when we hit to 4K displays, movies like 300 that may have been shot in 2K are going to look really bad. And things that are shot in SD are going to look even worse because they're like 16. It's like watching like a quarter VGA on your monitor now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Couchguy's video right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, this is just really interesting to me because I'd always thought that the digital conversion was pretty much,
It's a
Done.
moving target. Moving target.
and what you're saying is that it was just an initial step to get converted over to a digital format. Now we have to worry about getting it up to the quality that we need.
Well, every time that we up our quality standards, we up our needs. Come here, baby. Oh,
All right, so
come
we
on,
spent
pickle.
10 minutes on the first topic.
Well, I mean, I was concerned about
Well, let's
how,
stop and have another show. We can stop and have another show.
I just was wondering how viable, I mean, how necessary 4K was, and if it's just another kind of like high-end product that will never see the light of day.
No, it's not.
Because
This
of
isn't
the-
like CES. Let me explain the difference between this. This isn't like a CES. 3D fad. Everybody like claimed it as a fad. We've actually had 4K ability for probably 8 years now, with the Red camera.
Yeah, except for it's only been out for like 2 of those years.
Yeah.
Well,
But the Red camera had some limitations, is the main one being able to edit the footage, wasn't it?
Yeah, usually you do a proxy file or a low resolution and blah, 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 blah. But you ultimately end up with a 4K product.
part of that was the ability for the computer to actually do the work.
But that's nothing new. People were doing that with nonlinear editors since the beginning. They were doing proxy resolution editing of even standard def stuff.
Oh, I still do that. Are you kidding? If I have a lot of footage to do and I don't have a lot of space, you edit in proxy and then you bring them in. You know, that's one of the reasons why I was so disappointed with what happened with Final Cut, because that was one of the things that I really enjoyed with the media managing abilities and how that worked. All right, say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.
She's tearing stuff up beside me. So we could do two things. We could start another show and have the camera rant about 4K, or we could just keep going.
We'll just kick through this real quick. So
Okay.
yeah, so that's the thing. I'm predicting it'll all be about 4K this year.
I think that we're gonna have a huge thing in there. I don't know, because I don't know whether Canon's gonna come out with another camera besides the C300, because they had predicted a 4K camera. They had pushed a 4K camera
They'll
early.
probably come out with a cheaper version of it, I'd imagine.
I don't think they're gonna have it cheaper than C300, man. I got the 5D Mark III.
Well, that already came out.
I know, that's what I said. That's the
Yeah.
cheaper version.
Yeah.
So,
kind
what storage do all these new 4K cameras use?
Usually solid state drive. It's something like a Gemini system or something like that. Yeah, it's really expensive.
So like on the Sony one, they actually just store to SD cards, I think.
The Sony camera
But
that
it's
just
not
got
in 4K.
yeah,
it only
cannot record in 4K.
It has an output of dual SDIs that do 4K, so you'll have to have an external recorder to record the 4K output, and that will most likely be as solid state storage.
Is this an existing limitation that hasn't really been addressed? Because
Because
Well, it's a speed issue. It's a speed of acquisition issue versus data pipe.
JVC, what they do for their 4K consumer camera is they have
Right
4
back.
SD slots and 4 HDMI outputs, and they stitch it all together to give you a 4K image.
well, it seems interesting that these like Sony and all these other camera manufacturers haven't partnered with the people making the storage
The problem
devices.
is they need to make a standard. They need to make a 4K standard that everybody can adhere to. Because right now it's just kind of like they're just throwing stuff out there, and there's no.
Well, whatever standard comes out, you still need the bandwidth and the throughput and the storage space to.
Right now, today, you can upload 4K to YouTube and people can play it on a monitor, as long as it can do higher resolution.
I'm talking about recording it and taking it a form to media.
And this is part of the problem with the limitations of the medium. Having a method for recording something. The new, I think it's a 16 millimeter. It's a knockoff of I think it's a Bolex camera or something like that. That's doing frame acquisition.
I thought
They're
I posted
trying-
that in the show notes. No, I didn't.
No, this is a different camera you're talking about. This one is, I don't know if it does over 2K, but it's trying to do individual frames instead of actual
It's
videos.
a 4K camera that's going to be $2,000, and
Bullshit.
and it shoots in still images.
This is a different camera. Is this the Bolex?
This is that the Bolex that's the
That's like still a
Kickstarter?
Kickstarter.
yeah.
So it's basically motion JPEG almost.
But that's
But
how a
there's no
lot of these
motion.
work.
You just import it into your editor and then
But you have to remember, that's all we've ever been working with anyway, is individual frames laced together that in motion create a film strip. That's all it's ever been. So it's all the same technology, it's just how you get there. For me, if I had a non-file-based method where I could have a sequence of images, and let's say the camera like the Viper or something like that, which is, I think this is how I'm not positive the Viper still works this way, but originally the high-speed cameras would just dump this file system of individual files, and you'd have a sequence which you could manipulate to whatever speed you wanted to.
Oh, that was the other big thing about the Sony camera, is it could shoot in high speed.
Yeah, 240 frames per second.
4K at
seconds.
240 frames per second?
For 8 seconds.
At high def. You could go even higher than
That's
that
a big
at
deal.
standard def.
Honestly, that's a huge deal. It could go up to 960 frames per second if you want to go down to standard definition.
Yeah.
That's a really fast frickin' sensor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What it is it's just an image dump. It's how much data do you want to dump, and how much data how big is your pipe. So the lower your resolution, it's not half the resolution when you go to
Basically
SD.
like hacking
It's
the camera
1/4.
to get a faster frame rate as opposed to a higher still.
Yeah.
So is a limitation of getting the image compressed to a format that's acceptable to dump onto storage is just
Yes.
computing power?
Yes. Well, it's computer power, heat.
Throughput.
Some of the sensors, like these, just overheat. You just can't run them that hot,
like
that
the
fast.
DSLRs. That's part of the video limitations is they overheat if you leave them on too long.
Yeah, and you gotta remember, a sensor that's dumping that much data gets hot, and you can't have fans, you can't have big heat sinks, which they do in some cases. I think the Viper.
Liquid cooling.
Honestly, I think the Viper, most of the Viper was a heat sink for a long time.
And the red cameras, they got a big issue with a big ass fan that goes off, and you have to stop and let them cool down for a while, and they're not made to do continuous shooting at all.
Huh.
There's a give and take in this stuff, and this is an
I
evolving.
want to see one of those cameras that has liquid cooling offloaded into some like nitrogen or something like that. That'd be cool.
If they had to have continuous high speed, and it was something that like they could viably sell, you're damn right they'd do it.
That'd be a cool hack or a third-party or aftermarket product.
Because I guarantee there are people who, if they have to have, the problem is you've got a sensor dump. At some point, you reach the buffer limitation that's on the camera.
Yeah.
Combined with the limit of the data throughput, and it has to be done. You're done. You can't pump any more information through there.
It almost seems to me that the computing and storage requirements of these cameras is getting to the point that it's not something you could just keep embedded into one unit, and you'll have to offload them essentially.
That's why they're having outside recorders. Honestly, that's the biggest reason, because getting the information out of the camera has now become the new norm. We are going back 30 plus years in technology to output or outboard tape recorders. Because we can now, now we can get the video the size we want to and the data size we want to and all this stuff, and we just ship it out the door and let somebody else figure out how to capture it, because then it's your problem.
Yeah, some big ass long cable going from the camera to process the images, and then from there
that
to
has
dump
been
it
the
somewhere
case since probably, I would say, 2000, that we've started having this trend. It used to be we used to have 3-color cables that would leave the camera to get almost 444 kind of resolution, things like that, where we'd have the red, blue, and the green leaving the camera, and it would be off to this like monster data recorder, and to capture all the footage. And now we can do it in these little bitty things, and we're doing it via HDMI or the 3G SDI or the dual link 444 with the S-Log like the F3 does.
Yeah.
So there's a trend to offload it now because we can't embed the computing power inside the camera. But then, as time goes on, probably we'll be able to, that will slowly be miniaturized and get to a point where it can be put back into the camera.
I don't think it will be. I think that it's a matter of future-proofing a camera. Because if I can output I'm not joking on this. You're future-proofing a camera. If I can have a camera that can record 444 out, uncompressed out, in high definition.
No, because there's always going to be a better sensor. That's going to have
You're
better
right. You're right. But
ISO,
what I'm saying
it's gonna
is
be larger.
But what I'm saying is your ability to capture that is now in your ballpark. Either you can capture in the low end, if you want to capture the high end, and you can find a way to capture better from 8-bit or 10-bit and methods to do it, it's now a la carte. You choose your method that works for your workflow, which makes people who would normally say, no, I don't want this camera because I don't want to work with that format, grab a different device, plug it into there, that's my format, that's my device, and I can go.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
All right, so I think we'll wrap this up. Very interesting stuff, and if you want to catch more of this, we will be doing this live on our journey to NAB from the car.
3D is dead. Long live 4K.
Well, we'll do that, and you know what? If you have anything that you want to look at, if you want to see anything, we're gonna do a preview show, and then we're gonna do some recording while we're there. I'm not there for the whole week. Pox is not there for the whole week like we have been in the past. So if you have any requests that you want, get them in early because we're gonna take a look at it. But honestly, when I don't have time to even look at the stuff that I want to look at, we're in and out of there on the things for requests. Like I'm gonna look at the things that I need to look at for work.
We should be live on the 14th, this Saturday around 5 p.m.
Is it this Saturday already?
Time.
Holy smokes!
Yeah.
I've got a request. I want you guys to hunt down any cool camera stuff.
Cool camera stuff.
Cool
Be
camera
more
stuff.
specific, man.
Cool DSLR camera stuff. Cool.
The 5D Mark
frames.
III will be the biggest thing down there right now. I won't lie to you.
Oh, that was the one thing we didn't talk about was that hack.
You know what?
People
The
are
other thing
taking
that
apart the thing and ripping out a filter so that the image is sharper on the video.
What the hell? Who did that?
It's in the show notes. Philip Bloom did a thing about it. But yeah, apparently the 5D Mark III is slightly fuzzier than the Mark II.
Yeah, because they want to try and get rid of the moire.
Right. So you rip out the filter and it makes it look sharp again.
But you had the moire problem.
I don't know if they clarified
Now,
that.
There's a new Nikon camera out there. I don't know if you like Canon or Nikon
I
more.
saw the Nikon
Right.
at CES.
And I've seen the Nikon in person, like somebody had it, and they say it's pretty amazing. I honestly, at this point, am getting away from SLRs, and I hereby will make my prediction. We will see a migration away from SLRs.
And that's what I've heard too, towards like the evil cameras. So if you see anything indicating that shift at NAB, a whole like plethora of evil cameras.
Define evil cameras, because I'm not sure if I know that.
It's supposed to stand for electronic viewfinder interchangeable lens.
Okay, so basically the cameras that don't have the reflex lens, so the
Yes,
alpha.
but they still have.
Yeah,
exactly.
You can't call them DSLR because there's no
reflex
no
lens.
reflex.
lens.
I think the exact opposite. I think in photographers, yes, you're right. The evil cameras are going to be going into trend just because they don't have the clack problem. They don't have to worry about the clack ever coming up again. Because sometimes, honestly, what's the first thing that breaks if you have 3,000 clacks? 3,000 clacks, your sensor starts having, you get dust into your sensor. At 10,000 clacks, you have a problem with it maybe starting to stick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Plus size and weight and expense.
So take the clack out of it, and next thing you know, you just have to clean the sensor. And
that's why I want to see if Canon and Nikon, if they're going to get on with this, because they have so many existing customers that have dumped and invested a lot of money into their lenses.
I think the exact opposite, because I think in terms of what we're doing, they're going to be going back to more of a traditional in-your-hand camera that has XLR inputs, but it also, the big deal, why did the 5D Mark II get to be where it is because the sensor was so big at the time. That's it. Yeah. This started an entire revolution in cameras. Now all the sensors are big, and now we're back to, okay, now we have the image we want, which is amazing because we finally got back to images instead of features that are stupid. And said, okay, we have images, let's work back into features like, XLR inputs,
decent video code,
ND filters, things like that. And now we're back to talking about compression ratios. Who's got the better compression? Who's got the deal between compression, lens size, lens capabilities, and features? So I think we're going to go back to regular cameras. We're not going to go back to big cameras like I'm used to shooting with so much, but smaller, like, SLR stuff, but big.
Again, more camera stuff this Saturday. So
it's going to be fantastic.
TwoSmartGuys.com/live.
hours and hours
Amen.
and hours of me rambling about all of this.
Here's a
I
quick
wanna talk
question.
about-
No more questions.
Is Magic Lantern been ported over to the 5D Mark III yet?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but
It
it's on
will
a
be
whole
soon.
bunch of other stuff, and it is awesome.
But I'll be talking about LED lights. We'll be talking about all kinds of fun.
Yep.
So if you have questions, you can Twitter, you can text, you can do all kinds of
going to
stuff.
All the cool parties, and we'll try and get interviews from random people that are experts in their fields if we can, maybe.
Yes.
All right, bye.
Laters.
Bye,
Bye.
Internet.
This has been the Two Smart Guys production.